We talk about the efficiency and efficacy of any policy, fiscal policy, monetary policy, et cetera. We also talk about the distributional consequences. David, if someone rolls out a new fiscal policy, a new tax reform plan, the front pages of all the newspapers will say, well, who are the winners and who are the losers? So I give you and Brookings enormous credit saying this matters, and we shouldn't sort of treat it as somehow not right for central banks to take it into consideration. At the end of the day, we should all be very modest about our conclusions, both from Josh's paper, which I thought was terrific, and my own judgments on this. Quantitative easing was created by Don and others and myself, including me in the depths of the crisis, and I was a huge supporter of QE1, and ended up being quite a bit of a different view by the time of QE2 and beyond. But it was created to deal with a certain problem that was in the markets. And I would say that it has become such a long-lived product and is a product now that is used by virtually every central bank around the world, tells us that even if our judgment on the risk reward in the depths of the crisis were one thing, we should be thinking about it in a different context now. As a first approximation, I do think what we did was radical or new or novel and unprecedented, so none of us should think that we've got the answers on it. However, it does strike me as though quantitative easing is fundamentally different than cutting interest rates, and that it appears to be working through fundamentally different transmission channels. No longer credit channels and lending channels appear to be the dominant way in which it impacts the economy. It appears much more to be working itself through asset prices. Whether you think about housing stocks or financial stocks, I think that is the dominant channel. And as a first approximation, if 3/4 of our fellow citizens get 96% of their income from labor income, it strikes me we ought not be dismissive in saying, oh, everybody wins. We talk about trickle-down economics in the conduct of fiscal policy, and we should ask ourselves, as Brookings is today, what are the impacts here? At the end of the day, my view is because the asset transmission channel is the dominant channel, and because those assets are held not so much or in and of itself by rich people, but it's held by people with big balance sheets, a lot of sophistication, an openness to liquidity, a sophistication about what central banks are trying to target, and a view that they have liquidity, so that they would react differently versus those that are at lower quintiles of income strikes me as something that is quite plausible. And when I look at the wealth creation across the financial asset world post-crisis, I view that wealth creation as being significantly above what my former colleagues predicted. When I look at what they expected in the real economy, I look at the real economic performance as markedly worse than they predicted. And so that's what I think raises these questions, makes them absolutely germane to today's discussion. And I very much do worry, as I'm sure many of the people in this room do, that we've created a product not with bad intent. We've created a product that may or may not turn out to be counterproductive. We are in the middle of this experiment as we are now, but where the gains have been extracted by the most well-to-do, by the most sophisticated, who see that the central banks are, to one degree or another, trying to get asset prices up to drag up the real economy. They get the joke. They have been willing to play the game. And it does strike me as though we have to think about not just the efficacy of these programs, but really who are the winners and the losers. And because we are in the middle innings of this game, it reminds me, David, a little bit when you came to visit Don and me and you were doing a book on Bear Stearns and the financial crisis was among us. It was hard to judge the prudence of any individual decision. Having this discussion now is great, but I think neither Josh nor I nor Don want to give you definitive answers.